Okay,
Okay.
Rabbi Hirshfeld, we're starting a new section today. I said we're going to skip one, and we're going to start Sugyas Kolu Kol Hakitzin, page Resh Hey. How are you doing? Resh Hey. Okay, everybody got it? Kolu Kol Hakitzin, and this is a very fundamental, very, very fundamental issue. Right? It goes in a different direction than the things we've been talking about. We've been talking about Ishmael and Edom and all those, and Paras and all those things. This is a very different thing. Let's see what it says. Amar Rav, because the Gemara is Sadik Zayin Amabes in Sanhedrin. Amar Rav, Kolu Kol HaKitzim, all of the kitzim, all of the ends have finished already. Ve'ein hadavar talui ela b'tshuva u'maisim tovim. And the matter is dependent only on tshuva and maisim tovim. That was what Rav said. Shmuel Amar, dayo le'ovel sheyamod be'evlo. It's enough for the mourner to stay in his state of mourning. Okay. So let's read the Rashi. The Rashi is right underneath in the Rashi script. So we'll take it line by line. B'tshuva. Okay. So he says, Im kol Yisrael chozrin b'tshuva, yovo. V'im lav lo yovo. So that's it sounds like a pretty tall order. Kol Yisrael chozrin b'tshuva. All of Israel has to be chozer b'tshuva in order for him to come. V'im lav lo yovo. If that doesn't happen, he's not going to come. It doesn't matter, if there's some kind of a timeline that he's supposed to come. At the end of the day, we have to do tshuva. And that was Rav's opinion. And Shmuel says, no, dayo le'ovel she'omed be'evlo. Dayo le'kodesh baruch hu she'omed kama yomim. Right, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is waiting for many days. V'yemino ochor. Right, and his right hand is like held back. It's a phrase from Eicha. His right hand is held back. Klomar. Which means to say, Im lo yasu tshuva, even if we don't do tshuva, even if they don't do tshuva, eino omed be'evlo kol hayomim. He's not going to remain in a state of avelus forever. Elavadai kates ledavar. There's certainly going to be an end to the matter. In other words, it can't go on forever. Loshon acher. Another pshat that Rashi says, Dayo le'ovel. The ovel here refers to Yisrael. Dayon le'Yisrael tsar golus. We have enough tsar from the golus. Afilu below tshuva nigolin. And even without tshuva, we'll be redeemed. That's the first machlokas in the Gemara. Let's go back to the Gemara on top. And the Gemara says that this machlokas amaroim between Rav and Shmuel is really a kitanoi. It's a machlokas tanoim as well. Rebbe Lezer Omer, Imo Yisrael osin tshuva nigolim. If Yisrael does tshuva, they'll be redeemed. V'im lav ein nigolim. And if not, they won't be redeemed. Amar le Rabbi Yoshua, and Rabbi Yoshua said to Rabbi Eliezer, Im ein osin tshuva ein nigolim. If they don't do tshuva, they're not going to be nigolim. El HaKadosh Baruch Hu ma'amid lahem melech shegzeirosav koshos kohama. What's the eitzah? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to bring a king whose decrees against the Jewish people are as difficult and as severe as Haman's. V'Yisrael osin tshuva u'machzir al mutav. Yisrael will do tshuva, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring them back to the good state. So Rabbi Yeshua says, right, that we'll have to do tshuva, but that tshuva will come, right, if it doesn't come through internally, through our own free will choice to do that, so then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will squeeze us so badly that we won't have any choice. How will he do that? HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take a melech who's kosher kahaman, and can make already, so we can see some kind of an allusion to Paras. Haman was Amalek, but he was in Persia. But anyway, it'll be somebody who will be such a difficult king, and they'll do tshuva. Tanya Idach, right? Another brisa. Rebbe Lezer Omer, Im Yisrael osin tshuva nigolim. Shenemar shuvu bonim shovavim erpa meshuvosechem. Right? Return. Right? Bonim shovavim, by the sons who have gone astray. And I will heal your strayness. Right? Amar lo Rabbi Yehoshua, alo kvar nechach. And the pasuk says, Chinam nimkartem. You've been sold for free, meaning without money. V'lo bekesef tigaelu. And without money, you will be redeemed. Chinam nimkartem avodas kochavim. You have been chinam nimkartem because of the sin of avodas kochavim. V'lo bekesef tigaelu, and you will not be redeemed with kesef. The drasha, and this is lo b'tshuva ma'asim tovim, and we'll see. Rav Moshe will explain in detail why this is called kesef. Okay, but so basically, we have here a machlokas. It's the machlokas Amoraim and a machlokas Tanai between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yehoshua, and whether in Israel and Negolim tshuva or exactly how it happens. Okay, the next piece of Gemara we won't do right now because it's a different inyan, and when we get to that, the shir on that inyan, well, let's read the Rashi on this. There's one more Rashi. Lo bekesef, lo b'tshuva u'maisim tovim. So kesef here is a reference to tshuva maisim tovim. The afilu einos in tshuva nigolim mishum the omar chinam nimkartem kri kesef b'loshon tshuva. So Rashi says that kesef is related to tshuva. One of the meanings of the word kesef is to yearn for something, to connect with something. So kisufim. So maybe that's what he means, lashon tshuva. But Rabbi Moshe will explain the connection between kesef and tshuva. Okay, so that's enough of that introduction, and now we'll go to the Gemara. Okay, page Reish Zayin. Here he repeats the Gemara, so we'll go straight to it. It says, Hagu'ula ve'atshuva. Okay, so what's the relationship between Geula and tshuva? Mevura b'Gemara. Shenechlaku gedolei atanoim v'amoraim. Moshe points out that when we're dealing with the Rabbi Elazar and Yeshua from an earlier generation of Tanoim, right, and Rav and Shmuel, the gedolei amoraim, ala tshuva hakodemes l'geula. They're arguing about the tshuva which precedes Geula. Ha'ima geula tluya ve'omeret b'tshuva shel Klal Yisrael. Is the Geula dependent upon the tshuva Klal Yisrael? Oh, she'Geula tluya rak bo yitbarach. Or is the Geula dependent only on HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Ube'et she'aleh l'ratzon ufanav, and whenever he decides. Das Rav, Rabbi Elazar, she'akol talui b'tshuva. U'Shmuel sovar Rabbi Yehoshua. Shall kol panim hem nigalim, in any event, they're going to be redeemed. Ella, shegam b'dat Rabbi Yehoshua mevuar, even according to Rabbi Yehoshua, it's clear, shall kol panim tzarich tshuva. Because why does he bring in the idea that there will be a melech kosher kohaman? The melech kosher kohaman will bring us to tshuva, but at the end of the day, we will need tshuva to have a geula. Ella, right? But according to Rabbi Yehoshua, shezeh ye'asel yedei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the tshuva will come about through HaKadosh Baruch Hu's intervention. Shamid le'melech kosher kohaman, that will bring a king who's as difficult as Haman. He'll force them. He says we need a great explanation. What's the machlokas all about? Ubechol seder hashaklavataria begemara, and the whole seder of the shaklavataria. Right, it's going to go into the psukim. What does each one say about the other one's pasuk? V'chein zorach v'tzorach bir, and we have to explain. Imla dat kulam tiyet tshuva lebesof. If according to everybody, you need the tshuva will be at the end. What's the difference? How it'll come? Why is this an important thing to talk about? Okay, so Kedarko Rabbi Moshe is going to go into this in his depth and his breadth, and hopefully we'll be able to follow and understand and learn. Okay, so the first is an introduction. Hagulat tluya b'tshuva. Rabbi Moshe says unequivocally that there's no question that redemption depends upon tshuva. There can't be a machlokas about this. It depends on tshuva. Yeah. Repentance. Shleimus haGeula hi tshuva. Right? The shleimus of Gula, the perfection, the completeness of Gula, comes from tshuva. B'tchila nevayer shebe'emet lo nitan lahafrid klal bein hatshuva v'geula. The concept, right? We can't distinguish, we can't differentiate between tshuva and geula, between repentance and redemption. Mishum she'atshuva hi ha'mevi'ah et Yisrael l'malat geulim. Because we're going to see, right, a quotation from the Ramban, right, in the next page, right, that in order to be considered to be redeemed, we have to have repented. We have to become close to God. There's no such thing as a redeemed Jew who has experienced the Geula, who has not, right, come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and been choser b'tshuva. Right? There's a contradiction in terms. You can't be redeemed, right, and say, "Oh, I'm still going to be, conservative or reform, right? But I'll be redeemed." There's a contradiction. Right? You have to, right? Redemption means, as we'll see. So therefore, it's clear that redemption, right, must be accompanied by tshuva, or tshuva has to be a prerequisite for redemption. A very, very important Ramban, right, which is at the beginning of Sefer Shmos, an introduction to Sefer Shmos. And what is he? And he says like this, because the Ramban, as we know, he gives a name, a theme to Sefer Shmos. He calls it the Sefer HaGolus v'HaGeula. It's a Sefer of Golus, the Golus of Mitzrayim, and the Geula. Right? And the Ramban explains, right, that the Geula that we had from Mitzrayim, right, went through several stages until it was completed. Right? The first stage, of course, was leaving Mitzrayim, right? Kriyas Yamsuf. The second stage was Kabbalah Satorah. Right? That was, right? But there was a third stage, because Sefer Shmos doesn't end with Kabbalah Satorah. Sefer Shmos ends with the Mishkan, the completion of the Mishkan, and the Shechina dwelling among Klal Yisrael. And right, and so and Ramban explains that all of that is right. Is included in this concept of Geula. Right? So he says like this: V'hinei, says the Ramban, Hagalut einenu nishlam ad yom shuvam el mekomam ve'el malat avotam yashuvu. Right? You can't say that the Golus has ended, has been completed, right, until the day that they return to their place, to where they were, and placed not necessarily in the physical sense, but in the spiritual sense. Ve'el ma'alat avotam yashuvu, and they will return to the ma'alah, to the great level of their forefathers. Right? Meaning, they have to get back to where Avram and Yitzchak and Yaakov were. They can't. Right? Only when they return to that great level of closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then we can call that. Then the Golus will be ended, and the Geula will have been completed. Ukesheyatzu miMitzrayim, afal pishiyatzu miBeit Avadim, even though they were no longer slaves, adayin yechashvu golim, but they're still going to be considered golim, exiles. Ki hayu ba'aretz lo lahem nevuchim b'midbar, because they were in a foreign land which wasn't theirs, and they were wandering around in the desert. Ukeshabau el Har Sinai, Vasua Mishkan. But it's only when they came to Har Sinai, plus Asua Mishkan, they made the Mishkan at Har Sinai. V'shava Kodesh Baruch Hu, v'hishra shchinoto b'neihem, and the Kodesh Baruch Hu came back and caused his shchina to dwell among them. Az shavu el malat avotam. Then they returned to the level of their forefathers. Sheyasod Eloah alei ohaleim heim amarkava. That was the concept of the God on their tents, because they were their merkava. They were the chariot of the Shechina. Meaning the Shechina dwelt among the Avos. They were the place where there was Hashrat HaShechina in this world. And then when Bnei Yisrael built the Mishkan, and there was a Hashras HaShechina in the Mishkan, so Bnei Yisrael replicated the situation. They returned to that situation of the Shechina dwelling here in this world, there's a Mokom Havashros Shechina, ve'az nechshevu geulim. And then they were considered, they were called redeemed. V'lachein nishlam hasefer hazeh behashlimo inyan hamishkan u'biyot kvod Hashem aleoto tamid. And that's why the completion of the book of Shmos is the book of Geula is with the completion of the Mishkan, and as the last psukim say in Sefer Shmos, in a very, as in Parshas Put at the end of Sefer Shmos, in a very dramatic way, Uchavod Hashem malei et Mishkan. The glory of Hashem filled the Mishkan, right? Uchavod Hashem malei oto tamid, and this was Geula. So Ramesha says that here the Ramban tells us what the definition, where do we need to be redeemed? In other words, clearly Geula, redemption, is meant to create a situation where we are redeemed. We are Geulim. And now the Ramban has defined for us what does it mean to be Geulim. Right? So we can't say that Am Yisrael is Nigal, is redeemed, until we have reached the stage where the Am Yisrael has become the place where there is Hashras HaShechina. Right? And Hashras, obviously, there will be no Hashras HaShechina in Am Yisrael as long as Am Yisrael doesn't keep the mitzvahs, right? Asuli mikdash chanti betocham, and that's the mitzvahs are what constitutes the place of where Baruch Hu can rest as Shechina. If we do, Sukkim tell us over and over again that when we do averos, we drive away the Shechina. So have to. Okay, so that's a quote from the Ramban. So now Moshe will summarize it as he does. Geula means repent, to return. Without reaching the mile of their forefathers, not going to be called gulim. The kuman lashuv, and obviously to be back, right, to the mile of our forefathers means all the bechinos of repentance from sin. To the point of the Shechina, which was by the Ovos. And you can't separate, you can't create some kind of artificial distinction. Oh, there can be a Geula without Tshuva. No, it can't be, because by definition. And it says explicitly in the Pasuk of Parshas Nitzavim, V'shavta ad Hashem Elokecha v'shamata b'kolo, right? You will go. You will do tshuva. You will listen to the voice of Hashem. K'chol asher anochi mitzavchayo, which includes all of the mitzvos. And then it says, right, a couple of psukim later, V'shav Hashem Elokecha es shvutcha v'richamecha. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will return your shvut, your captivity, or your return, v'richamecha, and He will have mercy on you. V'shav, and He will come back. V'kibetzcha mikol ha'amim asher v'chitzcha Hashem Elokecha shama. And He will gather you together from amongst all the nations for which He has scattered you there, whether He has scattered you among them. Shirak achar sheyikuyam v'shavta, that you will return. Az yitkayem v'shav Hashem Elokecha shvutcha. Then the pasuk says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring you back. So there's clearly, there's no such thing as geula without you. Right? So anybody who has fantasies about, right, that there can be a geula when Am Yisrael is in its present state of non-shmiras mitzvahs and being far from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That could include people who try to be shomer mitzvahs as well. As long as we are in our sorry state, right, without tshuva, there can't be a geula. Redemption is not possible. So therefore, therefore, that can't be the machlokas between Rebbe Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. So what is? Okay, so now he's going to go a step deeper. The kivan shenit ba'er. Right. So again, the headline of the title of the next paragraph is Hatshuva mile'ela or miletata. Right. The question is, does tshuva come from above or from below? Where is the inspiration going to come from? Where is the initiation? Where is it going to be initiated? That's the question, right? But that's the only question. Right? It's a component, which cannot be separated from the Seder of Geula. Azai, Misha Sover Shakadosh Baruch Hu Yachriach et HaTshuva Af Below Hitorut Mitzidenu. So Rabbi Yeshua, who says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will force the tshuva, even though there is no hitorut mitzidenu. We haven't aroused ourselves to tshuva. We could be in our chas v'sholem, in our dormant state of non-tshuva, of distance from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but still there will be from above a hitorut. So Rabbi Yeshua holds, she'ikar geula ba'a milamala. Right? The geula will come as a divine, from the divine, from above. Kodesh Baruch Hu won't wait for us. Kodesh Baruch Hu will say, okay, the time has come, and so therefore I will bring about such terrible decrees against the Jewish people, which will force them to do tshuva. They'll realize that they have no choice, that there's no hope other than to come back to Kodesh Baruch Hu. But the one who holds like Rebbe Eliezer, who holds that everything depends upon our tshuva. With Lashon Rav, kol hakitzim, everything is over, right? All the cases are over. And it depends upon tshuva. Az tshuva tnai mukdam legula. Then tshuva becomes a precondition, a prerequisite. And so then it turns out that Gula will come from the bottom, from the ground up. And that's the machlokas. Right? And if we don't get to it, so then things will just schlep out until we get to it. Right? But there's not going to be. The Baruch Hu is not going to initiate it. Okay? So I think we better hope that we pass him like Rabbi Yeshua, because otherwise, he means that we have to that of course Baruch Hu is going to initiate the Geula. He's going to initiate the redemption. He's the Geula, the redemption. He's going to bring us back to him. Back to him. Yeah. Okay. So that's a basic definition of what the machlokas is. Machlokas is it going to be initiated from above or from below? What is this dependent upon? Where do these shitas come from? So Moshe says that Rebbe Lezer kebei Shammai, Rabbi Yoshua kebei Hillel. And we'll see how that fits in. V'yisod machloktam shel Rebbe Lezer Rabbi Yoshua be'inyan zeh. Right? The foundation of the machlokas of Rebbe Lezer and Yoshua. Nautz is grounded, is set b'chiluk ha'yesodi shebein deoteim shel Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, about the fundamental differences, one of the fundamental machlokas between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. LeBeit Shammai haholech al pi midat hadin. So we know, Chazal tell us, the Sforim HaKadoshim tell us that the Beit Shammai goes al pi midas hadin. The strict rule, the strict law. Right? And Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel is midas chesed. It goes from a different side. But Beit Shammai holech al pi midas hadin. Hakol matchil mikan. Everything has to start from here. V'im lo milamata lo yifalu tnuah shel geula. And if from below we don't activate some movement of geula, gam lamala lo yikra klum. Even also above, nothing's going to happen. It's got to be activated from us. And that's midas hadin. The din says, listen, you do it, you do it. You don't do it, you don't do it. Avol Beis Hillel svira lahu she'ikar chidush shel ha'hanaga ba milamala. The chiddush of how things are going to be changed, of how Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to run the world, is going to come from above. V'lachein hagam she'gula tzrichat koach hatshuva. It's true that gula requires tshuva. Et hakoach hazeh atzmo yifalu milamala. This will be activated from above. Al yedei melech kasher kaman, by a king who is as difficult as Haman. So the question is geula a divine movement, or is it a from below movement, a human movement, something which needs a human Again, it doesn't mean that. Again, it could be that there will be a great person, a great king, who will be makser people with tshuva. Right? But there's going to have to be something to spark it, which according to Beis Shammai, right, which is the midas hadin, will be there. According to that, that's the shita of Rabbi Elazar.
Whatever you have to do, that's the state.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So now there's another machlokas between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Shamayim va'aretz mikada. So now Rabbi is going to give a very interesting twist to this, because he's going to bring a Gemara which would seem to say the opposite, but in his Gaonus, Rabbi Moshe is going to show it's not the opposite. Muvur beGemara, shenechluku Beis Shammai Beis Hillel im shamayim nivru tchila or aretz nivru tchila. Which was created first, heaven or earth? Okay. Even though, according to what seems l'chora, right, in the pashtus, that they've reversed their shitas. Right? In other words, Beis Shammai says that the heavens were created first, and Beis Hillel says that the earth was created first, Aretz was created first. So he says, l'chora, it's a contradiction, because if Beis Shammai says that Shemayim was created first, so then it goes together with saying, okay, so things are initiated by Shemayim. Well, therefore, it should be, according to Beis Shammai, so the tshuva should come min Shemayim, okay? Like Rabbi Yeshua says. So the shitas are switched. That's what Rav Moshe is posing as a question, right? But he's saying it's not like that. But let's just understand the question. That according Beis Shammai says the Shemayim was created first and then the Aretz, but yet in the matters of tshuva, Beis Shammai says that the tshuva has to begin from below, right? The Geula has to begin from below, and Beis Hillel says that it begins from above min Shemayim. So he says, it appears that they've changed, they switched their shita. But if you look at the matter in depth, it's not that way. Let's understand the depth. What does it mean that heaven was created first? So he says, שהשמיים הם סדר הנהגה קבוע ויציב, שאין בו כל חידוש ושינוי. Shamayim is something which is fixed, something which there are no changes. Right? It's predictable. Right? The celestial bodies move in movements which we can predict, right, for the next 100,000 years. Right? Okay. When I was a kid, we went to the planetarium in Chicago, and they put on the stars on the things, and they say this is what the stars looked like in the time of. Well, we won't mention his name because they weren't so Jewish, but and this is what the stars are going to look like, in 100 years from now or 500 years from now. Everything is exactly we know everything, right? So that's what he says. It's kavua, right? V'yatziv, and stable, right? She'ein bo kol chidushin, it doesn't change. Oh, umemela. So this is Beis Shammai who holds that the Shemayim was created first. So that means that a fixed system was created. Umemela, afa aretz shenivra achar kach. Also, the aretz which was created after the Shemayim has to conform. The aretz has to conform to the system of Shemayim, because Shemayim there's only one way that things can be. There's no flexibility when things are Shemayim. So since creation started with the inflexible Shemayim, so that means that the world, the Aretz, which was created as a kind of image, right, of that Shemayim, because it came next, so that was created with the same rules which are immutable, right, which So the rules of Aretz is just as fixed as the rules of Shemayim, and that's why Beis Shammai goes after the Midas Adin, because he says, right, either you live up to the expectations or the system which was HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, or you fall short. Right? So he said they set up the ideals, and we have to live according to those ideals, and if we don't, so then right, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Rabbi, I have a question. I don't understand why they would argue about the order, because the first pasuk in the Torah clearly defines the order. It's a very silly question on my part, I understand, but how can they pick a fight over that?
Okay, so so I don't know the answer to your question, right? All of that, right? But the machlokas is a machlokas about let's see when he gets to Beis Hillel. Okay, so you're arguing on Beis Shammai side. Let's see in the next paragraph we'll get to Beis Hillel, and perhaps we'll come up with an answer, and we'll see. If not, then we'll ask the question again. Okay, well let's wait for a minute. Okay, so he says, it's got to stand according to the inflexible, immutable rules of Shemayim. If tshuva doesn't come from the Aretz, lo tiyeh siba legula, because the Aretz has to adapt itself to the way the Kodesh Baruch Hu, to the ideal system. And if we don't live according to the ideal system, so then things aren't going to change. That's the Beis Shammai. Ach leBeis Hillel haaretz nivra tchila. Okay, but according to Beis Hillel, Aretz was created first. Right. The Aretz he ma'arechet shel bechira. Let's say, right. Aretz is a place where there are possibilities. It's a system where you can choose. Right? Whereas the Aretz itself is a place where you can choose one way or the other. Right? There's a flexibility. Right? There's a flexibility, right? It's not just one possibility. Okay. V'lachein, af shehi lo omeret legamrei b'din, even if the Aretz doesn't follow the din completely, right? It doesn't, right? Yesh la basis shel kiyum. It has some foundation of existence. It has a base for its existence, because we're given a situation where, right, it's meirosh, right, from before, from its inception, right. It was given a situation where it could be this way or it could be that way, right? And therefore, within that system, even if things aren't done 100% right, but they're done within the context of this is how HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted the world to be. Baruch Hu, when we do something wrong, right, we're doing something wrong within a system of HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowing us and giving us the freedom to do something wrong. So therefore, we are not completely, how should I say, mufrach. We're not completely, we haven't been reduced to non-existence by doing something wrong. Okay? We haven't put ourselves outside of the existence of nature, right? Because that is the nature of things. The nature of things is that that we can do things right, we can do things wrong, and if we do things wrong, we're still in the parsha. Right? We're not going to get. Right? You can imagine, imagine a school where the rules are so strict that if there's one infraction of the rules, right, zero tolerance, and you're out, right? Because that's the way it is, right? In this system, right, there's no room for mistakes, right? And if you make a mistake, you're out, right? And on the other hand, if you have a system which is built on, yeah, you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to, and everybody makes mistakes, and it's understandable, and it's part of the system, and it's how you learn. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu put us into this world in order to improve ourselves, knowing full well that we are not going to be perfect from the beginning. Right? So that's so then we're operating in that system. So that's what Moshe is saying. So in that base Hillel system, so even if we're not the way we're supposed to be, right? But in a certain sense, we are the way that we're supposed to be, right? Because we are functioning, right, as we were given the ability to function, given the power to function, right, through free will, right? So since we're functioning through free will, so then right, we're living according to quote unquote the rules, and that's what Moshe is saying. There's a very big difference between the Beis Shammai approach and the Beis Hillel approach. Very deep. You have to think about it, right? That it's two different approaches, right? Right, what's our measuring stick, right? Right? Are we measuring ourselves against perfection, right? In which case, we'll fall short, right? Or are we measuring ourselves against the fact that we have weaknesses and we're going to take them into account and hopefully improve and get better? But the fact that we sometimes stumble and fall with our weaknesses isn't going to erase our existence or erase our kiyum. That's what he says.
It's a little,
Yeah.
it's a little confusing because I mean, both parties, Beit Hillel, Beit Shammai, have to agree that there's free choice. They both have to agree that we're not perfect. And I mean, it's even more confusing because it's like Beit Hillel who says that the purpose of the world and the world came first. Therefore, the main purpose is this choice. He's the one that Dafka says our choice isn't so important. We're going to get Geula from above. I mean,
Yeah,
it seems like
again,
it's mixed up in my mind.
Okay, but we'll try to clarify it. I mean, the questions are fair, but I'll try to clarify it. Meaning that, again, the question is, certainly, as you say, everybody agrees, that the world is, all right, and the world exists, right? The question is between exercising the midas hadin and midas chesed, right? How do you, right, as the administrator of this world, how do you react to sins, to infractions, right? How do you react? Do you act strictly? Right? I mean, Jory, you've lived Baruch Hashem a nice number of years. In your life, you've come across people who are very strict, and you've come across people who are lenient, right? Of course, people who you've had good bosses, and you have bad bosses, or hard bosses, and tough bosses, and all kinds of people, right? Sometimes you got a guy who will throw you out of school for doing something that then in another school they'll say, yeah, that's the way kids are. What's the big deal? We're right. So again, so the question is a question of measurement and degree, right? Is the world going to be approached through din, or is the world going to be approached through chesed, right? That's okay. And so now he says is that it depends which, in other words, again, we're talking conceptually, right? In other words, which system, right, came first, right? Was it the system of din that came first, and everything has to and everything is measured by how they conform to din, or was it a system of, as I say, the bechira, which is that things are done with bechira in order to get to the din, but we judge with chesed. We judge with rachamim. The Baruch Hu judges us with rachamim, and we say, Hashem kel rachum v'chanun erech apayim v'rav chesed v'emes, right? So there's certainly a Baruch Hu is mishatef the midas harachim. Those are all again. So everything is going to be obviously a question of the balance in the thing, right? So that's right. And again, and to answer your second question is that that's exactly the point. The point is that because we live in a world which is not 100% fixed in the way right. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take the initiative just like a loving parent, right, who sees his kid going astray, right, and says, well, listen, if I don't do something, right, to bring this kid back, right, then he's gonna go astray. So the loving parent will initiate and bring back and say, listen, I'm not gonna let it just go, right? Whereas the strict parent who says, listen, you know, that's that if he's not following the right way, so then that's his problem. I did what I could do. I did my ishtadlus. I raised my kids and this and I did what I did. And if they want to go their own way, then say it.
I can't do very proper films. Ones that my TV, it basically said.
1 second, I'm getting a question. Yeah. Okay. We'll talk about it in a little bit. Okay. Yeah, in a few minutes. Okay. Okay. So let's move on. Okay. Ulechein. Okay. So he says here, V'yodua she'Rebbe Lezer hu mibei Shammai. Everybody knows that Rebbe Lezer belongs to the school of Shammai. K'mavur b'Tosfos. As Tosfos says, because the Gemara says in several places, Rebbe Lezer shamutehu. And one of the definition or the explanations of the word shamute is beishamai. Right? It's got to start because that's the din. Because if you don't get moving on your own, so then no rachmanis. Right? And he quotes here on the footnote as from a sefer. He quotes from the Chidushei Haran. Right? If you look at the very last line in the bold print. Right, Rabbi Lezer shamutehu, Rabbi Yeshua midabeis Hilohu. Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Lezer were always arguing with each other. They were, and it was Mekubal and Chazal that Rabbi Lezer was from the school of Shammai and Rabbi Yeshua was from the school of Hillel. Okay, so he said, "Al divrei Rabbi Yeshua ahem aliv bebeis Hillel." But l'didei hatshuva hi chelek magula v'zeh bebechinas haaretz divrot chila. And that's he says the Oretz was Nivrot Chila. That means that the needs of the Oretz, right? We start with the Oretz again. So again, this will maybe help going back to Misha's question. The Torah says Shemayim Oretz. The question is, right? The question is where is the starting point of the relationship? Right? Where did HaKadosh Baruch Hu put the emphasis? Right? The emphasis is on the way the world is, right? Or is it the way the heavens are? The heavens are fixed, perfect, immutable. The world is topsy-turvy, right? The world can go this way, can go that way. It has many possibilities, right? Which is the Iker Bria of the world, right? The world of the rules or the world of the possibilities. Okay, that's the just to lighten the atmosphere, I'll just tell you a story a little bit. A little bit related, maybe I'll go through to find some relationship. I was reading an article in a biography of some rabbi, I think it was the chief rabbi of Moscow. Anyway, he was a student at one time in the Ponevezh Yeshiva, and then he moved to America and he learned the yeshiva in near Israel in Baltimore. So he said that when he was a bocher, later when he was an older bocher in near Israel in Baltimore, so there was an incident that some bochrim found their way into the kitchen Friday night and took some chont, as is the derech of yeshiva bochrim sometimes to raid the kitchen on Friday night and take some chont. The Anhol of the yeshiva was very upset, very upset. This is Geneva, Gzela, you're destroying the yeshiva. And so this guy who had learned in Ponevezh, an Israeli, a little bit, didn't keep his opinions to himself. So he said that when I was in Ponevezh, the same thing happened. The guys took the chont on Friday night, and the Ponevezh Rav said, "Listen, the yeshiva belongs to the guys, and Beseder, they're also own part of the yeshiva. It's my yeshiva, it's the guy's yeshiva. So they want to take on Friday night, let them take on Friday night. I'm not gonna get so upset about it, right? Right. So then they called him in. They said, "Oh, you're speaking in Baltimore." They said, "You're speaking against the yeshiva." He said, "I wasn't speaking against the yeshiva, chas v'sholom. And I'm just pointing out that there's two different shittas here." So there's again the Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, right? The Beis Shammai there's a rule, right? You got to keep the rule. If you don't keep the rule, then you're out of here, right? Beis Hillel says, "Okay, the world is run by the people. The Bachram also are part of the world." Okay, so, but you could either accept the analogy or not accept the analogy, but it's a nice story to remember. Okay, a few more minutes. Okay, okay. So let's do another few minutes. Yeah, okay, another few minutes, and then we'll be done. Okay, Hashefa yored mikoach chukata. We're going into another into an even deeper explanation of what's going on. Hageshem yored lebagashat adam. This is a well-known idea, based on Rashi and Chumash, at the beginning of Bereshis. Where does this thing start? Here, where the machlok is about, do things start b'shemayim v'aretz? The pasuk says, "V'chol siach hasadeh terem yeh ba'aretz." There wasn't any growth in the fields. V'chol esav hasadeh terem yitzmach, and there hadn't yet been any grasses in this field. Ki lo himtir Hashem Elokim ala aretz, because the Kodesh Baruch Hu had not yet brought rain. The Adam Ayin, and there was no man la'avod et Adama to work the land. That's the pasuk, well-known pasuk. Upirish Rashi, well-known Rashi, ki lo himtir, umat, and Rashi is saying, what's the connection? Because Baruch Hu did not bring rain, and there was no man to work the ground. Yes, he says, umat ta'am lo himtir. The end of the pasuk is giving you the reason, the explanation for the beginning of the pasuk. Uma tam lo himtir. Why wasn't there rain? Lefisha adam ayin lavodet adama. Because there was no man to work the land. Ve'ein makir b'tovatan shel geshamim. So there was nobody to appreciate rain. Ukesheba adam, but Adam came. V'yada shehem tzorech lolam. Adam realized that nothing is going to grow without rain. Right? Itpalel aleihem. So then he prayed for rain. And then everything started growing. The rains came. Right? There is not rain is only going to come if people pray for it. Okay, and that's a big yesod in tefillah. Right? That's why I say it's a well-known Rashi. It's a big yesod in tefillah. You got to ask for things, right? And if you don't ask, then the Kodesh Baruch Hu says, even though I know you need it, right? But right, that's not the way the Hanhaga works. Hanhaga doesn't work that just because Hashem knows that we need something, that it's automatically going to come. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to position ourselves as Kalim to receive it and to understand that He is the Loshan of the Maral, He is the Ilah, and we're the Alul, right? He is the cause, and we're the effect. We receive. He's the source, and we're the Makablim, and that's essential for the Shefa to fall from Mishamayim to Arts, and from the Shefa to fall from the heavens to the earth, right? And that's really, one second, that's really, it should be our Iker Kavana and Tefillah. Our Iker Kavana, one of our Iker Kavanas in Tefillah should always be that in order for there to be a flow of Shefa from above to below, right, we have to turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and say, we realize that everything depends on you. It's only going to come from you. And we turn to you and we ask you, because this is the way you set up the world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu set up the world as a Shomea Tefillah. He has a midah of Shomea Tefillah. And He wants us to turn to Him in prayer. And if we don't turn to Him in prayer, so then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, okay, no prayer, no Shefa. Okay. So that's, question?
That's what.
Yeah. It seems like
Yeah.
the action that's required from us is bitul. So to kind of nullify ourselves, that's the action. So that seems that could go with either system. In other words, we nullify ourselves, therefore the Geula comes from Shemayim. On the other hand, unless we act, do tshuva, mivatel ourselves, nothing's going to happen. I mean, I don't
Okay,
see
so
how this sheds light on
so I
what's
say we
going
haven't
on.
finished. We got another half a page until he explains where he's going.
Okay.
Okay, we haven't seen where he's going yet. Okay, I okay. So that's so again. He's going to show us a dual nature of rain. Okay, right in a minute. In other words, so far we've seen one side of the equation, right? But Geshem l'tzorach b'riyat adam. Omnam, right? He says, Afal PK. Despite this, Matzinu Geshem echad shi'arad b'li shitpalalu. There was one rain that came down without prayer. V'zeh Geshem shenitzrach b'shvil b'riyat adam. It says, right, we needed Geshem in order for the creation of man. Kedachsiv. Ve'ed ya'ale min haaretz, a mist would come from the earth. V'hishka et kol pnei adama, and would irrigate, would give water to the ground. Uperish Rashi, ve'ed ya'ale, le'inyan briyato shel ha'adam, for the purpose of creation of man, he'ela hatahom, the Baruch Hu brought up the depths, the water from the depths, v'hishka ananim, and right, and he irrigated, so to speak, the clouds, lishrot ha'afar, in order to soak the earth, right? That from which Adam was made. The nivra Adam, and Adam was created from this combination of water and earth. Kegabal zeh, right? Like a gabal, a person who kneads dough, right? Shenotein mayim. First, he puts the water into the flour, and then he kneads the dough. Avkana, it's the same thing here. V'hishka v'achakach vayitzer. Therefore, the pasuk says that first there was the mashke, the irrigation, the water, and then the creation of Adam. Nimtza, right? So Ramosha says that this is the dichotomy, right? Shekol shefa ba'olam sarich itaruta lilitata mitzad adam. For all the shefa in the world, there has to be a itaruta lilitata, an awakening from below. Aval etzem etziut ha'adam nivra b'itaruta d'le'ela bilvad. But the existence of man, that man had nothing to do with his own existence. The existence of man is completely min hashamayim, mile'ela. After HaKadosh Baruch Hu created man, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made man a partner in creation. And he said, okay, now that I have created you completely in milamala, so now, right, we are going to be partners, and the world is going to exist and flourish and have the shefa, right, because of your participation as well. Besod, B'Tselem Elokim bara oto. This is the concept of B'Tselem Elokim, which we've spoken about before. The Nefesh HaChaim, Reb Chaim Volozhiner, talks about how the Tselem Elokim is that the ability to create, right? The ability to, the Baruch Hu put us into this world as kind of his representatives, his shlichim, in order to create. Vuadin kan benogel legula, and it says the same thing, legula. Chalukim Rabbi Yeshua. האם הגאולה באה על הבסיס של צורת האדם הקיים בעולם, ולכן דווקא על ידי העבודה שלו תתחיל הגאולה ודודה של רבי אליעזר? Is it come because of the tzuras ha'adam, which exists in the world, to try to understand it, and therefore it comes dafka through the avoda, his avoda, right? The gula begins with dudas Rabbi Elazar. שרק על ידי התשובה יתחיל מהלך הגאולה. אולם רבי יהושע סובר שהגאולה כולה הוא חידוש צורת האדם, ולכן גם התשובה עצמה חייבת שתבוא בכפייה מלמעלה. Okay, I must say that I didn't hop this paragraph. Let's go over it again. All right, let's go over it again. Because I would have said just the opposite. Let's see what he says. Let me read it again. All right. Let's see. ועדין כאן בנוגע לגאולה, חלקים אלוהים. האם הגאולה באה לבסיס של צורת האדם הקיים בעולם? צורת האדם הקיים בעולם that's the first thing that we spoke about, right? That's the Adam, and after he exists, right? Okay. This is the first bechina that we said that we needed Adam to pray. right? Meaning that things have to come from, in other words, the Geula is part of, after creation, things are up to man. Right? After creation, then the way the world is run is up to how man deals with it. Does he pray? Does he relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu properly or not? That's that. So therefore, right. So that was the second part. That was the first thing that we said. V'lachein, since so that means it starts from below. It has to start from below because it's like it's to bring the shefa based on the creation of man. Right? Man was created, right? And this is the right? And this is the idea that Shemayim was created chila. It has to go together. Shemayim was created chila, so we have to conform to the rules. Right? There's a midas hadin, and the midas hadin requires that man participate in how the world runs. Right? Man has to take the initiative because that's the midas hadin. Because that's why Baruch Hu wants the world to run. Shirak idea tshuva yatchil agula. Ulam. Rabbi Yoshua Sover, she'agula kula chidush atzurat adam. It's the geula is the second way. In other words, the geula is going to be a complete reformation of man, just like the original formation of man was completely milamala. Man had nothing to do with it, and it was completely his Horus HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to create man. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to create a new man. There's going to be a new bria of man. There's going to be something right, which comes directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not going to be a continuation of the old man. Right? It's not going to be, there's a Tzuras Adam. It's going to be something HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come and recreate everything from the beginning. And that doesn't require a participation of the Adam. It's all going to come from above. Even as he's saying, it has to be that way in a certain sense, in order that everything should be lamala, because this is the essence of this creation. The essence of the geula is going to be that just as when Adam Rishon was formed, it was completely milamala. There was no, obviously, there was no involvement, no participation of Adam in his own creation. And so everything was complete, and therefore there had to be this kind of rain, which was unique in the history of creation. Right. So also that mist, that aid, sheyalim in haaretz, that's analogous to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to do with us, and he's going to bring some kind of a new force into the world, which is not at all dependent upon us. Right, asking for doing anything. Right? It's going to be a brand new force of a new creative force. And Baruch Hu is going to say, I'm going to find a source which does not depend upon you to initiate it. Everything else up until the Geula, it's all part of the world that Baruch Hu created, and we have to initiate it. If we want Parnasa, we have to ask for Parnasa. If we want help, we have to ask for help. Right, yes. If we want, whatever we want, we got to ask for it. Right? And if we don't ask for it, so then Baruch Hu says, right, you're too distant from me, and you haven't made yourself properly into a vessel for my shefa. But this is different. Okay, so now let's just finish up the paragraph for today. Rav Amar shekolu kol hakitzim. Klomar, Masha never Pasuki Od Chazon Lamoed, the Pasuk Chabakuk, which we've seen earlier in the book. Od Chazon Lamoed, V'yafeach Laketz, because Baruch Hu will bring about the end. V'lo Yechazev, and he will not falsify. Im Yitmameach Hakelo, and if he Yitmameach Hakelo, if he delays, wait for him. Ki Yavo Lo Yacher. Hakol Kvar Haya. As he says, everything has already come into existence. Umitzar Haketz Kvar Lo Chaser Shum Davar. In other words, Baruch Hu has put all the pieces into place. One more sentence. Everybody's got to do tshuva. That's the midas hadin, because, right, but everything else is in place. That's what he means. Kolu kol hakitzim means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from his point, from his end, he has done everything. Right? He's set it up. Right now, we just have to come and and initiate it, right? Like sometimes, you'll to do something complicated for your kids have to do something complicated. You'll put all the pieces together, and all the kid has to do is makib patish, right? Oh, Dad, thank you. You did something. It's you made it possible for me to do. All you do is but so that's what we have to do. But the makib patish is up to us. If we don't put it together, it's not going to happen. וכדומת הגשם שלא יכול לבוא בלא תפילה מצד האדם. בכל זמן שלא תהיה התעוררות מלמטה לקראת הגאולה, היא לא תוכל להתגלות. Okay, and then we'll have to stop here, and next we'll go over it again. That brings the sheet of Rabbi Shmuel. Okay, everybody say, so my advice to you is start doing tshuva, right, because better we should initiate it ourselves and have to wait for the Trump that's Kosher Kohaman, or the Rahmanani, whatever his name is, Kosher Kohaman, right? A lot of people out there who are candidates for being Kosher Kohaman, and we don't want to. We'd rather avoid them and do it on our own, and maybe we could even pass on like Beis Shammai today and start doing tshuva. Okay, the Seder, but everybody should have a good week, and Mitzvah Hashem. We'll see you Mitzvah Hashem next week. Mitzvah Hashem. Kol Tuv.
בעזרת השם, כל טוב, תודה רבה.